Okay, I'm going to stick mainly to the points Herb was talking about, but before I start, he named a lot of things that that he said were good things that the government's done, but when you say that, you ignore the unintended consequences or the unseen from, let's say, if it's a tax, the unseen is what the tax would have been used for if it wasn't taken from a person. They may have invested in something that was even better than what the government took the money for and then gave to whatever cause it was. So there's the unseen, but there's also, just going back to our main premise, the non-aggression of force principle. How can you really say any good comes from government when that money is forcibly taken from people and then used for whatever the bureaucrats think is the best, or even the majority thinks is best, because the minority in that vote is still going to be stolen from. So, okay, there was a comment made about how we're all inherently social animals, and that's totally true. I mean, just because Joey and I are individualistic doesn't mean that we don't recognize that. The market is tons of individuals that interact voluntarily all the time. But when you force someone to do something, then that's where you're violating the other person's right. So just because we're individualistic doesn't mean that we don't interact with people. I mean, most people here interact with people voluntarily, probably 95% of their whole day or their whole life. But when it comes to the government, it's a lose-lose. They say, give me your money, and you may or may not get something back in return. Depends on if the bureaucrats decide that you get something back in return, or the majority vote. Also, there was some talk of natural monopoly, and largely natural monopoly is a myth. Almost all the monopolies you see in any country is caused by the government. For instance, the roads. The roads are a government monopoly. Like, okay, there are a few that are privately made, but usually they have contracts with the government so that they don't have any competition between them. My challenge for everyone here that when it comes to the roads is ask yourself this question: is there any way roads could be built without forcing people to pay for them? I could come up with examples, but it's kind of the same thing with most of these arguments. Another thing I'd like to address is the environmental concern. And a lot of corporations, and Joey and I are not fans of corporations, but they get away with violating the environment because of a lack of strong property rights. The acid rain came up. I mean, in a free market, that may be a particularly tricky one, but if you can prove that the acid rain is causing property damage to someone else, then that's a legitimate claim to get compensated for that. But other kind of more common examples you hear, like corporations dumping into rivers. Well, the rivers are really owned by no one, so all the corporation has to do is bribe a bureaucrat that has some say over it, and then they're allowed to dump in that river and cause health hazards to everyone. Whereas if someone actually owned the river, then there would be property rights there, and there would be a property rights infringement. All right, I'm running low on time. I had some other notes, but we'll probably get to it with the questions. So that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim.